All right, so I'm not going to try and explain this. I'm just going to say what's on my mind, and whatever makes sense, whatever sense you can get out of it, that's what's going to make sense. But I have been asleep for a long time, asleep. And by that I mean in that autopilot mode. And the reason why I got into it was because I felt like I deserved it. I felt like I wanted to take a break, like I needed to take a break. Two, there were some issues that I didn't want to deal with, and I just kind of numbed myself for the time being. But in an effort to try and wake up, I started doing that today, and the reason why I felt like I needed to share this is because there's some effort that was put into it, and there was some ideas that came out of it as a result, and I just want to share these. So there's ways that you keep yourself asleep. There's ways that you keep yourself numb. And the way that you do that is simply by consistently satisfying your desires. You're constantly doing what you want and nothing else. And so you numb yourself. You always feel good all the time, and you don't try to do anything else. When these desires come up, and this is already part of my notes, this is stuff that I already know, I just haven't reviewed because I haven't wanted to review, because I didn't want to put in the effort to review it. But when these desires come up, they're part of you, and you're supposed to feel them. They're part of you waking up. They're waking up, and what you try to do with these desires, because they bother you, you try to push them down, you try to numb yourself, you try to not feel them. So that's the constant state that we live in, right? So I tried to resist satisfying my desires. There's some cookies up there. That's what I mean, okay? I don't need to explain anything more than that. But I tried to stay away from satisfying these desires, and that was difficult. Now I know at this point, because of all the research that I've done, I know that at this point it's not about just resistance, just pure strength of will, just willpower resistance. No, there's supposed to be a change in mindset that helps you do this. So that's what I started looking at, and I started feeling this desire, this pain, this discomfort. I started feeling it and started thinking of it in a sort of way. I was about to review my notes when I did this. And then I started distracting myself, because those are the habits that I have. I started playing a video game, and this is the perspective that came up. I don't have time to distract myself. I don't have time for this. I don't want to distract myself, because I need to focus on this. I need to focus on this desire. First, yes, one of the reasons why I need to focus on the desire is so that to make sure that I don't slip up, right? To make sure that the desires do not trick me into failing again. But it was something deeper than that. There was a deeper logic to it than just that, than just being afraid to fail. And this is hard to explain, but it kind of goes like this. That desire is me waking up. In the process of waking up, once your body starts waking up, when you start waking up, there's a point when you've had enough sleep that you just feel like getting out of bed. You don't want to be in bed anymore. Why? Because you're bored, because you've been there for too long, because you're awake now. Now, yes, there's, with the chronic sleep deprivation that our culture is used to experiencing, you probably can't relate to that. But try to think back to a time where you've had enough sleep and all you want to do is you're ready to get out of bed, right? So that's kind of what this felt like. It felt like I was already in the process of waking up. And by playing video games, by distracting myself, I was doing sleep things. I was staying in bed. And I don't want to stay in bed anymore. I want to get up. So that's what I did. I didn't feel like distracting myself anymore because I felt like I needed to focus on this, on what it feels like to wake up, on these sensations that come up and that I always try to suppress. But I need to get used to that feeling of being alive. So what I did is I put the video game away and I laid down. And when I was laying down, I was just trying to focus. Okay, take a deep breath and just feel it. And then try to think of all the things that you're going to do from here. Try to plan it out so that to make sure that you don't fall into the same pattern again. But that's just wishful thinking. That's best case scenario. I'm not sure. I don't think I'll be able to stay in this mode, but I make the effort. And as I'm trying to feel this and trying to understand what just happened, why I didn't feel like I had the time to be distracted, I realized this. This is what I realized. Distracting myself, video games, it's extra work. And why would I put myself through extra work when I don't have to? Why would I put myself through extra work when I can just relax? That's what I was feeling. I was feeling like I was alive, like I was having all these sensations, and I just wanted to relax. I just wanted to relax. And by distracting myself, I was giving myself something to do, but not just something that I had to do, because, you know, it's not just work, it's something to do that I don't even have to do. I was giving myself a task, and that's what we do. That's what we do with ourselves when we play video games. And it's not just video games, it's like anything that we feel that we want to do besides being productive. We give ourselves this purpose. And we're just addicted to this mentality of wanting to have something to do. Why would you want to work when you can just relax? And this is how we distract ourselves, right? And then I noticed that the reason why we play video games, and this is a metaphor for distraction of any sort. The reason why we play video games is because we don't enjoy it. We don't relax. Because if you notice, when you play video games, oftentimes you're tense, you're angry, you are focused. So that's the work. That's work. That's not relaxing. That's work. And the reason why we play video games is not because we enjoy it. It's because we're frustrated. We're frustrated. We have this constant frustration. And we try to get out of this frustration by giving ourselves a goal, focusing on that goal. And we hope that when we accomplish that goal, our frustration will dissipate. Because that's what happens when you do something. That's what happens when you achieve a goal. Your frustration dissipates, right? But this is an internal frustration that we have. And the way that we try to get rid of it is by putting this decoy goal and trying to achieve it, and hopefully this will dissipate our frustration that we have. And the reason why it's wrong to do that is because the original frustration does not have anything to do with the goals, with the decoy goals that you say for yourself. It's separate. If your frustration had to do with beating the final boss, then when you beat the final boss, you would be satisfied and you would be completely at peace. But it doesn't. You tricked yourself into thinking that you're frustrated because you haven't beat the final boss. But once you beat the final boss, you'll feel it. You'll feel good for a moment, but that frustration will come back after a while. Once you finish that series, once you finish watching that show, whatever show it is, you'll feel accomplished. You'll feel satisfied for a while. And then you'll notice, now it's over. Now what do? I have nothing to do now. I have nothing to live for anymore. It's that frustration, right? And so you look for another decoy goal to satisfy that frustration, to try and dissipate that frustration. And that's like, to try and come up with a simple example, that's like having an itch on your leg. And you can't scratch it because you just don't know your body that well. You don't know what's going on. So what do? You tense up your leg. You tense up your leg as hard as you can, and then you let go. And that gives you some sort of relief. That gives you some dopamine. And for that little bit, you feel good. And you're able to ignore the itch, but you haven't scratched it off. That itch is still there. Whether it's a needle, whether it's a rock in your shoe, it's still there. You haven't gotten rid of it. So what do? In order to feel that dopamine hit again, you tense up your leg as hard as you can until it hurts, until it bothers you, and then you let go and you relax. And that gives you a little bit of dopamine again. But that frustration, that original frustration is still there. You have not taken care of the problem. So that's what it was. That's kind of what I realized. I realized that we give ourselves things to do. It's just funny. It's seeing it from this perspective. Like I immediately lost my desire to distract myself with the video games. And it was funny to see it from that perspective, because one moment I can't get myself out of it, and the other moment, like, it feels like I'm doing extra work for no reason. I'm just doing extra work just because I don't like the way I feel. But that doesn't make sense. You don't have to do extra work. Just pay attention to your body and relax. Stop trying to distract yourself. It's clear to me now, but I'm sure sooner or later I'll revert back to my typical mentality.